We are done with 1 Thessalonians. So obviously you'd say, well, then we must be going to 2 Thessalonians. Actually, no. We're going to begin the Colossians today. By the way, I was getting a kick out of one of my parishioners who got up to read at a Mass one time. This is a long time ago. It wasn't in the parish I just came from, St. Anthony in Alston. It was one of the previous parishes. And I got up to read, and he called it Paul's letter to the Colossians. No, it's not the Colossians. It's the Colossians. But anyway, who obviously lived in Colossae. And Paul's letter to the Colossians. And we begin that today, but we also have a powerful feast today. It's that of St. Gregory the Great, Pope and Doctor of the Church. He lived in the 6th, 7th centuries, and he was someone who became a person who really called for great service to the poor. He called for people to live their faith, and he really drew people to the faith very powerfully. And of course, he ultimately becomes the Pope, and he was considered such a great Pope that they called him Pope St. Gregory the Great. And the Vatican, if you go to the Vatican News website and you scroll all the way down, you'll see a link that says Saints, and you look up today's date. You'll find information on him there. But anyway, he was one who called the saints, priests and bishops, to service. And that's important, priests and bishops to live in service. I was always fascinated by the Archbishop Emeritus of Boston, who is now Cardinal O'Malley. He's still Cardinal O'Malley, but he was the Archbishop of Boston, and now he's the Archbishop Emeritus, choosing to live in the Cathedral Rectory, which is in an area that was at one time surrounded completely with housing developments, and I can't think of the right word, but it was a very, very poor area. It eventually, not because the cardinal was there, it eventually got built up, and some of the places that you could probably buy the whole building for a few $1,000s ended up going $1 million a floor. But when he moved in there, which still there are people live in the area who are very poor, he wanted to live with the poor as the Capuchin he is. And that's pretty powerful, and because he understood the importance of living with the poor, and that's important. Obviously, the people who aren't so poor need the gospel as well, but we need to be people who reach out to the poor as best we can. Now, you may come to a point where you realize, I've done everything I can, but you can still pray intensely, realizing I've gone as far as I can go. I can't go any further anymore. I just can't. Not that I can't because I'm not able to. It's I can't because I'm realizing I've done everything I can. But you can still pray for someone you're trying to help or someone who's very poor. That's absolutely key. Absolutely key. Dealt with someone who I'm still praying for all the time, but I was helping him for years. And I kept praying. I said, and always in my prayer, it came up, let him go into the arms of Mary. So let him go. And if this is real, that's exactly what's going to happen. If this is real, then you're going to keep getting that message, and eventually you're going to come to a point where you have no choice but to do that, which is exactly what happened. And recently I was praying in the morning and, praying over this situation and continuing my prayers. And this word came to my mind very powerfully, wisdom. You have to treat him using wisdom. Don't just do, well, this is what I need. No, you have to use wisdom, which that's the way the Lord does with us. So I'll see how this goes. But I guarantee you, if the Lord wants me to learn a lesson and then act on it, it will happen. Guaranteed. And act on it, and guaranteed, and show me how to act in wisdom, which in a better way than what I was doing before. It will happen. I promise you, this will happen. So it was a powerful experience, but it's also seeking to help the poor. This is something we have to do. This is one of the problems with communism and socialism, because this is a real problem, because what they do is say, no one needs to help the poor but us, the government. And unfortunately, many of the bishops get into that because they don't get it. I'm sorry. He's criticizing bishops. I'm sorry. I just tend to, but they don't. They'll call for legislation that has, socialist sides to it. But we're also called as a group to help people. And Dorothy Day hated that concept. She absolutely hated it because she realized, she says, if you have that kind of a system, people think she was a socialist. She wasn't. She was an anarchist. Hated the system because it takes away from the people their duty to help others. You understand that? That's pretty powerful stuff. And this is one of the things that we're called to do, to really try to help in many powerful ways. And if it doesn't work, we're helping as best we can. But do you understand? This is one of the things that Pope Gregory called for. Now, of course, Pope Gregory lived about 1,200 years before communism came on the scene. But he made it clear, that we had to reach out to the poor, including the priests and the bishops, and that's one of the things we're called to do as priests and bishops, to reach out to the poor. And of course, Cardinal O'Malley, as I said, did that. And we have a new archbishop here, and he's living not at the cathedral. He's living in a rectory, as opposed to a specific residence designed for him. And we know that. We as Catholics, always, alarm bells go off sometimes when we see the archbishop living in an expensive place. And it's just something we don't particularly care for. And that doesn't happen here in Boston. But, that's something that tends to bother people, because they see that. Even though there was a man who was a pastor, and he was he has a problem with Catholic priests because they don't make lots of money. It's fascinating. And he says, that's not a good sign. No, that's exactly what Christ called, for us not to be rich. I have a friend of mine who was surprised that people ask me for money all the time. Hey, Friday, you got a few bucks? And I do. I get it a lot. But I don't carry cash that much anymore. And one of the reasons is, well, people aren't carrying cash anymore. And so he says, why are people asking you for money? You don't have any. I said, it's not unusual. And that was kind of funny. He said that, but he says, you don't have any. I said, I know, but, people do. But still, when you help the poor, even with a little, you're doing tremendous amount of work. And we're called to be mindful of the poor. One of the things that happened recently, and this is, a new law that's been passed, and they're saying, well, that's great. Now people who are on welfare will have to work. That's good. Wonderful. Okay. Are you going to give them a job? Wow, that's because many of the people are on welfare because they have criminal records. And you've got a whole system that says if they have a criminal record, we won't hire them. One of the results of the sex abuse crisis is the archdiocese basically does not hire people with criminal records. True story. Doesn't hire people with criminal records. Well, many people used to come to the church saying, no one else will help us, and you're the church. Can you help us? And some of these people, still to the case, are, what would you call them? Diamonds in the rough. Do you know, kind of along the same lines, do you know that Steve Bannon, of course, was in prison? He was in prison with a guy, black man, who was in prison, who told him Trump was going to win. He was statistically accurate to the point. He had all the things figured out. He was a prisoner. He says, here is this guy who's intensely smart, and he's in prison. And he knew, he says, all along, he says, I can guarantee you Trump's going to win. He says, here's your figures, here's how it's going to work, here's the whole bit. And he says he was dead on right. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, people forget that when you put people in prison and they're there for a long time, obviously with reason, but you don't have an alternative to any form of dealing with this issue, you're also depriving our society of a tremendous wealth of talent. It's a real problem here. There is a former governor of Massachusetts who I despised so much. I despised him so much. People would say, what do you think of him? This is a former governor. I'm not talking about the present governor, who I don't despise. But so what do you think of him? And I said, if you ever have a glimpse of hell and you see the devil, you go, why? He just looks like the governor of Massachusetts during the time of this particular governor who I despised. And his whole focus was making people in prison suffer. And he didn't get the message that many people, maybe they belong in prison, but they're also a resource. And maybe they don't, but they are an untapped resource that no one can tap because you're all focused on your money and all this other stuff and not realize that this is an untapped resource that you have to fix. Maybe they can, maybe they can't leave prison, but they still can do powerful things for our society. And on the same line, if you're going to turn around and celebrate, these people on welfare, now they have to work, you darn right well better hire them. You darn right well better hire them if you own a company and you're saying that, because some of the reasons why they're on welfare is they did time in prison, they're finished with their time, but no one will touch them. Or what's worse, someone who is accused and then the district attorney chooses not to prosecute. They arraign him and everything, and then they choose not to prosecute. That person is in the worst position because they can't clear their record, but they can't get into programs of people who did time in prison. We're going to be back with the final part of our interview with Father Hofer right after this.
You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at CatholicAudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.
We're back. And don't forget, if you sign up for patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media, you can hear these programs before they end up on our podcast platform. That's true. Absolutely true. You can also see my columns. You can see all kinds of things. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Well, we're going to the final part of our interview. Don't forget, this is all about a Rosary pilgrimage going on in Washington, D.C. It's going to be happening at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, one of my favorite places in the entire world, along with the Shrine of Our Lady of Aparecida in Aparecida, Brazil. It's another one of my favorite places. But in any case, check it out. You can get there by CUA station, CUA Brookland station at on the Washington subway, and it's right there at the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception. RosaryPilgrimage.org. RosaryPilgrimage.org.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that pops into my mind as you describe all that is I can look at this as, well, I'm going there. I work, I'm a hospital chaplain. So I work Sunday to Thursday. So it might be tricky for me to get down there, although it sounds like something I'd like to go to. But we'll say, people go down there all excited about the Rosary and everything else. But, this is a great experience. This has been inspiration for me and stuff. But in a sense, what you're describing is, yes, true, but we're also praying this to reach to people who maybe who are nowhere near Washington. They might be on the other side of the world, who also need graces from God. And so you're really almost as, I don't know, maybe I could use this term as being like the salt that Jesus talks about for people all over the world. Would that make sense?
That's right. Yeah, we want, by God's grace, to be salt of the earth and light of the world. And the Eternal Word Television Network is going to cover that Saturday evening Mass. So it will be broadcast throughout the world. And then to see how people do come from all sorts of places to Washington, D.C. as pilgrims for the Dominican Rosary pilgrimage. And there are many people who do not come, but they still support the pilgrimage through their prayers. And then to see how it is a wonderful time of holiness, and we want to be able to change the world, to bring the world back to God.
Maybe I should add something. I don't know if you're aware of this. You must be aware of this. I work with Brazilians. And are you familiar with Our Lady of Aparecida?
Not really. Tell me about
okay. Oh, there is a huge shrine in Aparecida, which means appeared, Brazil. And
I know Pope Francis, there was that gathering of the Latin American bishops that Pope Francis would invoke. That was very important.
And yes, that was the Aparecida conference. And it's very similar to what you see in Guadalupe, but it's a what we would call a statue that was found in the 1500s, powerful place and everything else. Well, that image was also installed about a year ago, or maybe, it must have been 2 years ago. And it was all excited. People all over the world, Brazilians, were really excited about it. Unfortunately, our Catholic media didn't cover it, but that's a different story.
Oh.
But it was a wonderful experience for the Brazilians, and I'm affiliated with a Brazilian Catholic network. I don't work with any of the American ones, and they were up here and they were covering it, which leads me to ask two questions. Which one of them I might just refer to the people in Brazil. Is one of them being, are you going to have different images of Mary during this? Or obviously you could, if people hadn't seen it, you could see the Aparecida image. And the other is, will you have other networks from around the world?
So for the first one, we are at the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception, which has something like 60 altars and shrines dedicated to Our Lady under many different guises, so that Our Lady is venerated in many different forms, and how, because the nation has had so many immigrants, that you do find Our Lady invoked under various kinds of national patronages. And particularly moving for me is to see the Our Lady of Africa chapel, where there's a diagram of a slave ship that is in the floor. And then as you go, you see an African Madonna and child, and the four evangelists are depicted in African features. And so that would be one example, and that's right there at the National Shrine. And so that, and then I just don't know, since I don't handle media things, how all that works, because sometimes I think a network may also have exclusive rights because of a setup in a particular place. But I'm sorry, I don't know.
You know what? I work with Canção Nova in Brazil, so I will definitely let them know. And Canção Nova means new song.
Thank you.
And definitely let them know. So what I'm seeing is that this is really more of a witness, I guess you could say. It's an experience. It's a powerful. It's going to be a great tribute. It's going to be prayer. It's coming together. I mean, there's so many words I could describe, but I also see it as a witness.
Yes, that's right. So it's a great witness of proclaiming the gospel, and then it's a time of repentance. So there'll be many priests hearing confessions. Oh, wow. It's a time of education, because we'll have conferences, so that way people can learn more. It's a time of celebration, so concerning all the different kinds of celebration, both the sacred celebration of the sacrifice of the Mass within the church, and then a celebration with the Hillbilly Thomas. Yes. They have their Americana bluegrass folk music that is very uplifting, the various kinds of public prayer, and also time for silent personal prayer. It's a time to meet people too. So there's a lot that will go on Saturday, September 27th.
And you said you had, I think, thousands of pilgrims last year. Yep. You're expecting then people from all over the country?
Yeah, well, so it'll be mostly the eastern part of the country, but I think there are people who are coming from farther away. Yes.
Well, it sounds like something really exciting. And like I said, if I could make it, I have no idea. Because the problem isn't getting there; it's getting back in time to be the hospital chaplain the next morning back here in Boston.
Sure.
Yeah. But in any case, it sounds really exciting, and this is free, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. And we're very grateful for your support of this to let people know more. And then if they can't come, to be able to pray, to join their prayers, particularly their Rosary, with the Dominican Rosary Pilgrimage on Saturday, September 27th, and how we want to do this right before the month of October. Right. So the month of October is the traditional month dedicated to the Rosary, and October 7th is now the feast of Our Lady of the Rosary. And so as a way of preparing people for the month of October, and particularly the great feast day.
Do you expect any, I don't know how you put it, any maybe salutation or even presence of any of the politicians there in Washington?
Well, so Washington, D.C. has lots of people who are in different kinds of public service, including politicians, and so they're welcome to worship. Yeah. So this is where, when we celebrate masses in the nation's capital, it's common to see politicians there worshiping. Because they're they can be the faithful like anybody else.
You know that's true. And I use the word politician because sometimes it has a negative connotation, but you're talking about all different jobs, and I figure that's the good blanket one. But it would be really helpful to the people if they knew more that these people were going to Mass, just in general. I'll just tell you a little story. In light of that, and I'm a great fan of bull riding, and one of the fascinating things I don't bull ride. You see in some of the bull riders, the Christian, including Catholic bull riders, is they will either bless themselves or point to God or anything, point to God in many ways. When they finish their bull riding, whether they do it successfully or unsuccessfully, and I says that is a great witness. Granted, some people don't like bull riding, but that's still a great witness. And that would be fascinating if more politicians just made it very open. And again, politician is the word I want to necessarily use, but senators and representatives and everyone else just made it known, I happen to go to the Basilica. I know exactly where it is, and I go there regularly. Yep. That would be so helpful.
Yep. Yes, and some do.
Great. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This was great. I will definitely pass the word. I'm going to pass the word down to Brazil as well and let them know.
Thank you.
And, I'm sure EWTN will have a feed available if people want to use the feed and all that.
Yes. And and on behalf of all the Dominicans of the Eastern Province of St. Joseph, I want to thank you, Father Carr, and to thank all your listeners, because we're very grateful for your support.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for doing this. And maybe you will see me.
Good. I would love that.
I would too. All right. Thank you very much, and have yourself a blessed week, and may the Lord bless your endeavors there.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
You too. Thanks. So anyway, this pilgrimage will be happening on September 27th. You can have a great time going down there and experience it if you can. I work on Sundays. My week is Sunday to Thursday, and I work as a hospital chaplain. So I do 8 hours minimum, and starting next week, the diocese wants me to be on call overnight, 3 nights a week. And it's kind of tricky for me, because I don't know if I can do an overnight if I get 3 calls and all of a sudden the next day I can't do much because I'm so worn out. I mean, I am 67 years old. But at the same time, I would hate the idea of someone whose loved one died and they're looking for a priest and they can't find one, or one of the priests on call. We have local parish, great guys, may not be able to get there for an hour, and the people have to sit around and wait for an hour. I don't know. I'm really torn by that. We'll see how it works out, but I definitely want to see that the people get served well. So it would be something that if I went down there, I'd have to make sure I get back by Sunday morning, which may include sleeping on the train, which is virtually impossible for me to do, as much as I love trains. Part of the reason why it's so hard to do, even though this would be at night, is I love to look out the window. That's the whole point of being on a train. You know, I also believe that when I am on a plane and someone goes and sits in the window seat, I always sit in an aisle seat, and pulls down the shade, there's a special place in hell for them, even if they pray the Rosary. I'm sorry. Special place in hell for people who sit in the window seat and pull down the shade. We're going to be back on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. And don't forget, if you do sign up for that patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media, you can hear the programs ahead of time. And we're working on a plan right now to have a paid version, like $5 a month or something like that. That's coming, but we haven't necessarily figured that one out yet. Well, in any case, so the Rosary is a powerful prayer. I pray the Rosary every day. Yeah, a couple times I miss, I'll be honest, time-wise. But I pray the Rosary as much as I can every day, which is just about every day. I'll tell you what I do. It's part of my holy hour. So first thing I do in my holy hour is I pray the Office of Readings, which is part of the breviary. And then I will do Monsignor Jonas Abib's system of Bible reading, which I'll have to find a way to let people know where to find that. And so what that means is you read a chapter in the Bible. Right now I'm going through Luke, and every principle you underline, which I underline in black. Every promise you underline, I underline in green. And every command you underline, and I underline in red. So I do that, and then you that's how you study and get a deeper picture of the Bible. Really powerful stuff. And then I spend time in just silent prayer, and then maybe doing some biblical or some spiritual reading.
And then the last 15 minutes of my holy hour, I start the last 15 minutes with the Rosary, and then I do morning prayer. So that's how I do my holy hour every day. It's essential, absolutely essential. If I'm not praying the holy hour, that's a dangerous thing for a priest to be. In any place, we'll be back tomorrow. Have yourself a blessed day.